It's Oswald.
All right, folks. I've seen all 8 episodes of The Penguin. This is a spoiler-free review. Let's talk about this.
You promised me, Oswald.
I know that.
I deserve a better life.
I'm working on it.
So following the events of the Batman, our boy Ozzy, aka the Penguin, makes a play to seize the reins of the crime world in Gotham City. Episode 1 airs Thursday, September 19th, followed by Sunday episodes. So I believe there's a 10-day wait between episodes 1 and 2, and then we get the 8 episodes, a weekly release like a lot of people like, and thus, we're back in the world of the Batman. And one thing I'll say about this series, well, I guess something that won't make everyone happy, it does feel like Gotham from Batman. They use similar sets. I noticed a couple of sets used from the movie. That was awesome. But visually, just to start with a little bit of a negative, it's definitely not on the level of Matt Reeves' film. Now, that's hard to match. We rarely get comic book movies on that level. There are still some stylistic elements to this show that I loved, but visually and viscerally, we're not there. Also, for those looking for a series with a lot of Easter eggs and comic book nods and things that we've read for years, and heck, even a lot of nods to the movie itself, you don't get that either. This does a nice job, and I say a nice job, of disconnecting itself from the Batman the movie, but we're very clearly in the same reality. And we know, as an audience, that Batman's out there somewhere. We just never really hit on that. So yeah, they're definitely removing themselves from the movie, but it is a continuation, and it does kind of fill the gap, at least hopefully, between Batman 1 and inevitably Batman 2. I'm going to make a comparison, one that y'all are going to think I'm crazy for, but hopefully when you see the first episode, you can at least feel the vibes. I'm feeling Sopranos vibes while I'm watching episode 1, because we're in the underbelly of Gotham, and that is where I want to be as a fan, because there's so much that's going on here, from Maroni to Falcone to literally all the different factions of these criminal individuals and groups, and that's really cool. We're also exploring not only who is with who, but who is portraying who, and who our boy Oz kind of pledges his allegiance to, at least in the beginning of this show. He's a guy who's pretty much done everything there is to do, and has worked his way up to where now there's a little bit of an opening in sight. He sees that opening, he tries to make his play, and it definitely feels like, for fans of like Batman Arkham Asylum, that version of this crime boss Penguin character, he's not quite there yet in this series, but he's definitely trying to work his way up, and you can see that in the first couple of episodes. Colin Farrell, obviously, I don't need to say much about the guy. He's in the suit the whole time. The prosthetics, a lot of that's probably going to get Emmy nominations across the board, but he does a fantastic job. As good as you think Colin Farrell's going to be in a TV show in this universe, that's about as good as he is. So no surprise, no shock, but he is someone who is on a mission, not only to prove it to himself, but to prove it to his mother. There's a relationship with his mother in this show that I found to be very compelling, very moving, but also there's a little bit of emotional manipulation that I found to be very interesting. But Oz, he's not alone throughout this show, because they introduce a young character by the name of Victor, who gets caught up in something in the first episode, but eventually becomes the driver of the Penguin, and he's going through a lot as well. He came from a very dire situation, just a boy on the streets, and he continuously says throughout the show, as Oz is kind of feeding him all of these things that he's learned along the way, trying to work him up, trying to get attached to him, but Victor's telling himself, I came from nothing, I'm not going to be nothing, I'm going to be something, and unfortunately, he's moving further and further down the wrong path, even though there is that internal struggle that I found to be beautiful in that character, a character that I didn't even know anything about. I didn't even know he was going to exist. And then while I'm watching the first couple of episodes, I'm like, he's as compelling as the Penguin himself. And Renzi Feliz, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correct, gives a great performance, because you're obviously going to question it at the beginning. It's like, is this story going to get in the way of what makes this so cool? You have all of these gangsters and gang members and people running this criminal world, and then you've got this little assistant. It's like, how is that interesting? But it is. It's interesting, compelling, there's an emotional touch to it all, but that's not the only supporting character that I found to be just as interesting as the Penguin himself, because Sofia Falcone is awesome in this show. Someone I questioned in the beginning. Again, this is a weekly show. You don't get to binge through it. So I think some people are going to have questions after the first 2 episodes like, all right, is this really going to work? But trust me, and obviously we should talk about who's playing Sofia. That's Kristen Milioti, who is in Palm Springs, one of my favorite comedies of the decade. Look, she's fantastic. This is a side of her that I've never seen, and multiple sides, actually, because she's playing such a dynamic character. But man, the commitment to this performance and the believability, I didn't expect it when I first saw her, but she's awesome. I want to see so much more of this character in other versions of this world. How she got to where she is. There's an entire episode showing us her past, which was beautiful, but also that dynamic with her father, who obviously ain't here anymore because we saw the movie, but with her brother and with other family members. All of these uncles in play, and all of these uncles, the Falcones, that's going to remind you of these classic mob movies, these classic gangster stories that's so prominent in a Batman spin-off show, but it's something that I've always really wanted to see. It's kind of what I wanted to see from Gotham, and who knows, maybe it got there. But I dropped off after 1 season. It was interesting enough, and I liked the fact that we focused on Gordon and all of those things. But I kind of wanted more. It got a little cheesy at points. You know, that television style of humor that often makes its way often into something like a CW show, but then you have some things that just don't really work tonally. And while there's a little bit of humor in here, and sometimes you've got some quirky characters with some quirky characteristics, especially when we spend some time in Arkham, which was fantastic. But for the most part, it's a very serious tone, and that's when it starts to feel like an HBO show. I was so excited when they said they were putting this on HBO and making it an HBO original because, man, oh man, does that mean it's going to be very mature at points? Absolutely. This is hard R/TV mature at points. Not only the cursing, but the violence, the things that we see, some moments where I'm like, I can't believe they're doing that. Not on television, because we've seen that on HBO, but in a Batman show. The fact that the Batman is getting away with the PG-13 rating, and this is what it is, yet in the same universe, I'm like, I kind of want to see an R-rated Batman. I know we're not going to, but this character works perfectly in an R-rated setting because that's the type of story that they're telling. And I'm also thinking about it, right? A weekly release, is that going to work for a series like this? That's a little slower, admittedly, because we're telling a very crime thriller, crime drama type of story that relies on dialogue and characters building and building and building, and ultimately a lot of payoff towards the end. So is that going to work weekly? It's not going to be in the tabloids. Do we care about tabloids? Probably not. It's not going to be talked about like WandaVision or a comic book show where it's Easter eggs every week. And oh my God, is what, Morbius? No, Mephisto. Not Morbius. Is Mephisto showing up next week? That's not the kind of show that it is. It's more along the lines of, and a lot of people are going to get excited when I say this, of Succession. And I'm not saying it's as good as Succession. I'm just saying you're so hooked on these interactions and where these characters are going to go and who is going to trust who and then who is going to betray who. And you know there's a character who's trusting somebody else, but because we're seeing the show, we're like, yeah, you shouldn't trust them. But here we go. They're going to trust him. Let's see what happens. It's that kind of show to where the characters, the way that they are written, all of that is the significant part of the series, not the fact that it's in Gotham. Gotham obviously plays for a big role here. By the way, this is the best version of Gotham that I've ever seen. And not just because I'm obsessed with this movie or I think this TV show is great, but because it's so fleshed out. It's not as visceral in this series, like I said. I think we're missing some of that Greg Fraser cinematography. So is it Batman 1.5 in that way? Yeah, not really. I think visually there's a little bit lacking throughout. I felt as if they could have tried to match the style a bit better. The tone is there, and it's not inconsistent. It's very consistent and very dark. And so the way this is written is going to kind of make you more comfortable in that way if that's what you're expecting. But visually, again, I did expect a little more. And then in the middle portion of the season, and maybe even in the first 2 episodes, specifically episode 2, it does slow down just a little bit. We're trying to establish what the Falcone family is all about, this war between he and the Maroni family. And these These things are all throughout the comic books, and while they're not taking one specific story here, they're leaning on elements of characters and maybe a minor character here or there. Again, don't expect Batman, don't expect Joker. That's not the kind of show that it is. I'm just warning you. People are going to be mad, but it didn't bother me. Once I got 3 episodes in, I'm like, yeah, I know he's out there. I mean, there were moments where there's an explosion that happens and something crazy is going down. I'm like, dang, he probably should have showed up. It's like early days MCU when you establish that there's multiple heroes and the world explodes and you're like, yeah, Iron Man probably would have showed up. Thor probably would have been there, but they're not. It's that kind of thing. So a couple of moments, especially big things in the city, you're like, Batman should have been there. Who knows? Maybe he's fighting, maybe Riddler escaped jail and he's fighting Riddler. But this is very close to what just happened. And that's another thing, right? It's the fallout of the Batman. The floods and the explosions that happen around the city, that is a major plot point in the beginning of the show. They work off of that, but now the crime world is more chaotic than ever. We don't know who's on top, who's not on top, and there's a little bit of an opening. Is it going to be Oz? Is it going to be Sofia's faction of things? Is it going to be one of the brothers of our boy? And so there's a lot happening here, man. But again, there is so much focus within the madness. The Penguin obviously always at the forefront, but those episodes that explore someone like a Sofia or someone like a Victor or whoever else comes along later in the series, that relationship between Penguin and his mother, all of it is so beautifully handled, and I don't want to go into any actual plot details because I don't want to ruin anything for you. Just know that the characters are interesting, and just know that you'll at least be engaged, if not enthralled. And if you enjoy the world of the Batman, the story is there, and the fleshing out of this world is brilliant, and it definitely whets the palate of someone who's wanting to see Batman 2 right now. Because I'm wanting to see Batman 2 right now, but I got the Penguin. I've seen the Penguin. I'm going to watch the Penguin again. If that tells you anything, it's a slower series, a crime drama. I don't often watch those twice, but I'm going to watch it again because, man, I love living in this world. And I love Colin Farrell as this character. The best Penguin we've ever seen, by far, absolutely. It's what I wanted from Gotham, and it is that Batman spinoff that I was hoping it would be, even though certain elements didn't quite live up to my lofty expectations. Maybe that's my fault because I was expecting way too much here. If you can put a couple of those things by the wayside, you're going to have a really good time, especially if you like this genre. Not the comic book genre, but the crime drama / thriller genre. A good mob movie, a good gangster story, something along those lines. This definitely does. And I don't want to say much else, folks. Should I do individual episode reviews or reactions, whether it be on this channel or Burke Reacts? Let me know that down below. If you drop a like on this video, we may do episode reviews. Now that I've seen the episodes, I can get those filmed, and I think that would be a really fun thing to do, but only if you want to see it. Also, leave your thoughts on this series below. The Penguin is a fantastic crime thriller that elevates an already compelling character from the film that preceded it. While not as visually stunning as the Batman, this story manages to expand upon the underbelly of Gotham, yet maintain its focus and never feel too scattered. Farrell is as excellent as expected, but Kristen Milioti almost steals the show as Sofia Falcone. This may be the most interesting version of Gotham we have ever seen. I am not joking. I know that's a crazy thing to say. Austin, we've spent more time in other versions of Gotham. I mean, we spent 8 hours. This is an 8-hour show, right? And it's awesome in the Batman as well. I can't wait for Batman 2. Did y'all like the Batman? If you didn't, who knows? Maybe you'll still like this because it's very different. So I'd love to know your thoughts down below. Just, man, if you want to see more, drop that like. I want to cover the show, I really do, but only y'all want to see it. I'll see you tomorrow for another movie review.